to enforce it. So yes, while you may think you're not an enforcement agency, you are in the literal sense of the fact that you are there to enforce the law. Whether it comes to a licensee submitting a license to you and saying, hey, this is my license, you have the power to enforce the law with that. So by you saying that you're not an enforcement agency is absolutely wrong, and it is absolutely discouraging to people that have issues with this stuff, and that is why I keep bringing it up.
Well, let me just say one thing. When we go into a liquor establishment, we see a violation, we write it up, okay? If a policeman says, I'm not gonna write it up, I've seen it, and then we dispatch a liquor inspector out and we don't see it, we can't write it up. Somebody has to say there is a violation.
The liquor board can.
How about some?
Not if we don't see it.
How about some inter-office cooperation between the two?
I think
There's a known establishment where there's a series of problems. How is it that one agency cannot talk to the other? How is it that known problem areas can
I would say
continue to exist?
I would say that the one thing that I think we have improved on is more inter-office cooperation with the police department. I have another inspector here, John Casmales, who works in this area, and that we have improved on whether or not when, let's say Coburn or someone goes out and it's like, they're not gonna write it, we're gonna write it. We do write the reports. We've updated our investigative reports. I think you've seen the fact that you've seen our inspectors testify more in the last year in regards to these. You know what, Chrissy, it's never gonna be perfect, but we are.
You don't need to point me out in this.
But I'm just saying, but what, no, you were the one who raised the question as the saying, the fact that that you've seen where where an officer goes out, an inspector's there, and whether or not there's a debate between which one to do it, and then one doesn't do it. I think that we've been trying to work on this issue. We're starting to implement our tablets so that we can get out there and we can do these out in the field. We've been trying to work on this issue. I understand we're not perfect, but we are trying to work on the inter-office cooperation.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned that, the law was written very, very broadly to allow for a lot of discretion. What we're asking is that your board, that your agency, man up and take a good hard look at this. May I ask what neighborhood you live in?
I live in Guilford.
You live in Guilford. So your closest bar area would essentially be
Cold Spring, right 4 blocks from
Cold Spring,
Loyola College, right down the hill.
College. You've got
Local operators, there's Miss Shirley's, there's
I'm going to
Alonzo's.
suggest to you, I know that corridor very well, and then you get up and you've got the Bellevue Square area there. And I'm going to suggest to you that the people who misbehave in your neighborhood are much better behaved than the people who misbehave in our neighborhood. We've got problems where people are walking out the door at midnight or whenever the place closes their doors, and they're jumping in their cars and they're crashing into cars. Now, I understand that that's a drunk driving issue and that's a police issue. I understand that. But there's a history. We know where a lot of these people are coming from. We know what's going on there. And I would suggest to you that our problems are not the same as your problems. And I would venture a guess that you find a way to lean on somebody coming out of one of the bars on Cold Spring Lane, one of the bars there, if there was a history of problems. And we're asking that you help us in a similar fashion. Because we do feel like we're out here on our own, and we do feel like we don't have a whole lot of voice.
We have 6 blocks from Guilford is Waverly, okay? You go down Waverly, it's the roughest neighborhood in the world. All you have to do is go down there, start at the Stadium Bar and go down to 25th, and go down to North Avenue, see what you see, right? Right? It affects our neighborhood more than any neighborhood, most probably. We have the highest rate of burglaries, of.
But again, our problems are not the same as your problems.
Every neighborhood's unique.
Those
Remember,
are not
there's.
related to the bars themselves. The crime that comes into Guilford is not the same crime that happens here in our neighborhood. Our neighborhoods are stricken by bars that are allowing the misbehavior. There are fights. There's fights on the street. There's a lot of these things that they're pretty localized to within a block or 2 or 3 of the bar where they come out of. Those people are not spilling over into Guilford.
We have, I'm not talking about Guilford.
Okay.
I'm talking, we have 8 to 10 inspectors, okay, that cover 1,300 licenses, okay? The only thing we can do is rely on the community, okay, to give us feedback. I've asked Michelle to give us all the 311 calls, okay? We take that into consideration. Mark and the inspector, the chief inspector, looks at the 311 calls and goes out to the communities and asks the communities. But remember, it's a limited operation. We don't have 1,500 people. We have 8 people, okay? We have 1,300 licenses. It's going to take time. So it's a community effort with us to find out what the bad bars are. And then we have violations, we can follow the regulations at that time. Well, we can't go out and be, what I call enforcement, is like the police and investigate activities unless we're notified. We're not going out on the street. I'm not gonna have around-the-clock operations till 3 o'clock in the morning.
Here's what happens.
The bars don't close
When
until
any
2.
places, I don't care what the crime is, whether it's a bar that's doing something wrong, or if it's a street thug on the street that's doing something, when they're allowed to continue, when they're allowed to develop a habit and they get away with it, it just makes more work for the enforcement agency. So if you wanna streamline things, you've gotta get tougher on the existing businesses who are creating problems. It's the same for the police when it comes to street crime, it's the same for any agency that's in enforcement, whether you wanna call it that or not. Whatever the agency is, they're making more work for themselves down the road when they kick the can down the road. So we're asking you to toughen up, because we know you have the discretion, you've told us that.
We have the discretion. Yes?
Just one more quick comment. So you mentioned that there's only 8 and 10 funded inspector positions. I applied for a position, and you know what? I would take $1 salary a year, work weekends for you, put me on the rules, or put me on the books. I'll go out and inspect, not even in my own neighborhood, so I'm impartial. And you know what? There you go. You're taking $1 out of your budget, and you're getting another inspector. I guarantee you'd get another 10 to 12.
But would you work
Wow,
after midnight?
right.
Absolutely. Because I want Baltimore City to be the best that it can be.
We have 2 recs open right now. We have 2 recs open right now.
So, yeah.
You know,
Do you have to take
He has-
bribes
he has
and
his
stuff like
application.
Yeah, we have his application?
Yeah.
You do?
Oh, yeah, it's been in there.
Volunteering, bucking out.
I work for $1 an hour.
Yes.
Yeah, I want a slightly different, or first of all, I don't, change the subject a little bit, but I feel